Um, Thank you everyone so much for joining the webinar today. We're going to be talking about the engineering sector and how the R&D, which stands for Research and Development Tax Credit, makes an impact on their business and how you qualify it, why you'd be interested in it. So we'll go through all the nuances of the R&D tax credit. But before we begin, we're going to do a little round of introductions for whom you'll be speaking to today. So I myself, my name is Maggie Crowley, and I head up our strategic development department here at Leyton. And we are a specialized tax credit consulting firm. And one of our specialties is in the research and development tax credit. So my job is to find a number of different partnerships in various different sectors, from construction to architecture to manufacturing, rental, and bring us all together to spread the word about the research and development tax credit. And today we have Bronson Skipper, who is actually a client of ours who has gone through the process, who will be sharing his experience. And I think an introduction probably comes best from yourself. So Bronson, please take it away and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Maggie. I'm Bronson Skipper, Director of Operations here at ASI. I was actually hired here a couple of years ago to help with payroll, work my way up to controller, and now I'm head of the company, helping handle, business strategy, planning, development, everything that you can think of in that regard. I'm really privileged and happy Leyton chose me to be their guest. They helped us out a lot with the R&D claim, and looking forward to talking about it.
Thank you. And then last but of course not least, we have Evangelia, who works on our engineering team within Leyton. And that is one of the key differentiators with the way that we operate our consulting. We have a technical expert for each area of business that's eligible for the research and development tax credit. So I'll let Evangelia describe her background and introduce herself.
Thank you for the introduction, Maggie. So yes, I am a senior technical consultant here at Leyton. My background is in mechanical engineering, so I have a master's in mechanical engineering. I had a special focus in industrial production. I also have a master's in robotic systems and control, as well as a PhD in material science. In industry, I worked previously as a testing engineer. And I've been with the company for a year and a half now, more or less. And I work with clients within the engineering sector and within material science, of course, as related to my expertise. And as Maggie mentioned, we take a two-prong approach. So we have our financial expert and our technical expert working with each client so that we can properly identify the areas of qualifying R&D. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I think that this is going to be an awesome discussion today. And I would urge everyone who has joined us to please participate. You can ask questions in the Q&A or in the chat box, and whatever you ask, we will definitely get answered. We'll have a decent amount of time at the end to go over questions. So we'll start by just running you through what the R&D tax credit is and how it can benefit your business and some activities that qualify. I think a lot of times what happens with the R&D tax credit, it's kind of named a little differently, people automatically disqualify themselves. So hang on, let's see if you guys are a good fit. And then we'll talk through automation solutions and the experience they had claiming the credit, what it was like. I think a lot of people also think that it's really time consuming, and the purpose of Leyton is to make it easy breezy and beneficial. And then we will leave some time for everyone to ask questions, and we can have a conversation. We can put our screens on and I'll chat with each other. So the R&D tax credit has actually been around since the 80s. And back in the 80s, it was more so a credit that was intended for larger Fortune 500 firms like Google, Pfizer, firms that were creating something that was really unique to their industry and new. And there was definitely a benefit they were getting from the credit. And in 2015, as part of an economic stimulus act, the R&D tax credit was changed, got a bit of a facelift, and it became a permanent part of the tax code. And it also became available to a number of different sectors. So there are about 70 different industries that qualify for the research and development tax credit, including engineering. And of course, engineering is extremely broad. So there are, subsectors that qualify. But the purpose of the credit is to encourage businesses of all sizes, whether they have, 10 employees or 10,000 employees, to continually innovate and think of new ways and better ways to achieve their end goal and improve the experience for their employees, their clients, and this tax credit allows them to do so. So now that it's available to a number of different sectors, we tend to find that a lot of businesses may not be aware of this, that they are now eligible for the credit. And so that's what we're here to do, help spread the word. And because it is a niche tax credit, it does require a bit of additional expertise when actually claiming it to ensure you're doing it properly. So we make sure that gets done. And another really nice part about the change that was made back in 2015 was that this tax credit is now available to businesses old and new. So if you are an early stage company and you only have, let's say you're under 5 years of business, you're not yet paying income tax, you can use this tax credit to offset your payroll tax liability. And then as you grow and get larger and you're paying income tax, you can use this credit to offset your income tax liability. So this tax credit can always be used as long as you have some sort of tax liability, be it payroll or income tax. So when we're actually determining how to calculate the credit, we, as Evangeline has said, we take a two-pronged approach. So we first look at what is a business doing within their activities that could qualify. And within engineering, and again, this is broad, so some of the activities that qualify would be improving or developing structural MEP systems, evaluating different design alternatives, including sustainable designs. I think we probably find a bit more because there's such a push for sustainable buildings and everything. I think we see a lot of R&D within this sector. Development of construction techniques, coordination, and modeling to improve efficiency and reliability. I think with a lot of the codes that many states are imposing now, this tends to be something that maybe a firm doesn't necessarily want to do, but they are now mandated to do. And the nice thing is that this mandate is in turn allowing you to benefit from a tax credit. The value engineering assessments to reduce cost and improve performance, improving or developing alternative ventilation systems for buildings, designing engineering equipment and machinery, improving manufacturing processes and increasing output, environmental design and impact studies, and improving sustainability and material reusability process. So I think the common theme that you can capture from this slide is that if you are designing, if you are improving a process or creating a new process or product, you're doing work within your firm that will qualify. So once we've assessed the activities that qualify, we'll then want to understand who's doing this work and what supplies are you using to make sure this work is completed. And that's the other half of the study that our financial team would assess. So the costs that make up the R&D tax credit are the salaries of those directly involved. So this would be the W-2 employees that you have. And the nice thing is it's not just those who are doing the work, but it's those who are supporting them and those who are overseeing them. And then the additional payroll sector would be any subcontracted costs that you have. And then any raw materials and supplies that you're using in those activities. So if you're prototyping, that will work if there are materials like building supplies. If that's a newer material, we can include the cost until you've perfected that. And then if you are using any software, like a development platform to support that, we can also assess if that cost can be included or a portion of that cost. So once we have those two, the activities and the costs associated with it, we begin performing our work and we build out a technical report that would list out where all the activities are, costs associated with it, and then our final deliverable would be the tax credit per year. So one of the best things about this credit is if you haven't ever claimed this before, because perhaps you weren't aware or it wasn't the right time, you can claim this retroactively. So right now you'd be able to look back to 2018, 19, and 20, and for those years, you'll receive a check back from the IRS. And then moving forward, this is a tax credit that you can claim each year. So this will offset your income tax liability in that current year. And then Leyton, we would help you guys really maximize this each year and build this in as a tax strategy, not just a credit that you've claimed in the past, but something that can really influence your business moving forward. So I will hand it over to Automation Solutions, Bronson, to talk a little bit about their business, and then we'll flow into the credit, and Evangelia can share their experience and give you guys a good picture of what it's like to claim the R&D tax credit with a specialist.
All right, thanks, Maggie. So like you said, we're Automation Solutions. We're based out of Birmingham, Alabama. We actually used to be located in Bessemer, Alabama. The company was incorporated in 1999, really didn't start getting pushed until 2008, and really did a lot of growing in the late 2010s, really from 2015 to 2020, just really exploded. We were able to get in those tier 1, tier 2 automotive manufacturers, get our foot in there, increase our capabilities, really kept doubling revenue year over year. Increased our building size. We changed locations 3 times in 5 years. That's what moved us to Birmingham for additional building space, additional overhead cranes that really increased our abilities. Now we offer a wide range of automation services, including mechanical design, integration, controls programming, motion controls, installation, service, support, you name it, training even. So we have our fingers in a lot of different industries doing that. Like I said, automotive is a really big one. They are repeat buyers. Yeah, and they with the change in their processes every year with new models of vehicles, they have to revamp their processes, new processes, improved processes, and more efficient processes. So, that's part of where the credit kind of falls right into our lap. Let's see. So our core capabilities, like I said, we offer a lot of different services. Motion controls is an extremely big one. Custom machinery, robotics integration, softwares, PLCs. All of these, majority of these actually do fall in the research and development brackets. Services and things like that don't necessarily, but we provide all over the Southeast. It's really been a more relevant industry in the North. Part of our ability to grow so well has been the lack of its presence in the Southeast, and especially recently with labor problems and things like that. There's a lot of opportunity presenting itself to really expand and grow. Coming out on the back end of COVID, there's been a lot of opportunity given that we survived. A lot of people fell off. So, a lot of opportunity to really expand in a lot of these areas. In the research development tax credit, we were actually ones that did go back and retroactively claim it for 4 years. This is something, we plan to incorporate into our quotes and actually figure out, is this something that Leyton looks for in their process? Can we anticipate it, and can we, of course, incorporate a discount in our quotes and therefore have a competitive advantage?
So out of these activities and within your core capabilities, did a lot of these qualify as activities for the R&D tax credit?
Really, the biggest ones that qualify: robotics, custom machinery, motion controls, integration, retrofits. They can qualify, but we have a lot of repeat retrofits. So those don't, the repeat ones aren't a new process. The first one obviously has some new process, new experimentation, improvements, and then if we're lucky enough, we'll get those repeat jobs and continue to do those. Vision is a lot of experimentation, looking through that, but really those first several categories are the big hitters. A lot of those other ones are really service related, support related, which isn't necessarily a improved process. It's just fixing a repair or training somebody on the job, so that way their guys know how to operate the equipment. And go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to ask Evangelia to elaborate maybe on some of these points that were a good fit and how we went through the process to qualify them, and maybe some of the detail that we needed from Bronson, and how we were able to formulate the credit, the documentation, so you guys didn't have to.
Yeah. So anything basically like Bronson described, anything that would fall under, routine operations or maintenance, simple replacement of equipment without really, having other considerations, even though a lot of times that might qualify from the perspective that you're replacing an older system with something new. So that has additional consideration. You have to perform some measurements, test out different hypotheses, and try to optimize the performance and meet those demands of the client, because typically they will have specific requirements with respect to what performance they want to achieve, what costs they are willing to shoulder just to have that upgraded solution. So we sort of grouped the projects based on different categories, and Bronson really captured that well. So we have different categories such as, motion controls, visions, robotics, some of the major categories. And the activities that will go into that would be, programming the controls, selecting the right type of equipment and testing it out. Sometimes you err and you have to replace it with something else, selecting which types of motors, which types of sensors, proximity sensors to use, where to place them, trying to resolve issues with those, redesigning parts of the equipment, for example, to accommodate different types of sensors that you might have to incorporate there. What else? Working with the existing system and trying to kind of balance what the requirements are with what that will allow and what the client will allow in terms of, additional costs. So a lot of it is selecting the right motors, drives, programming the controls, really taking into account all of that. Even network design, that's another area. So whenever you have to go through a design process, whether it be for a network design, or you have to do a 3D CAD design for a component, you have to implement a new feature that doesn't currently exist and integrate it in the existing overall system. Those are a lot of the activities that can be captured for the credit. And for automation solutions, there was a lot of those activities. And another positive was there were several individuals involved in that process with, varying percentages of qualification, ranging from someone who is, only partly involved as opposed to standard operations, and others that were very, very heavily involved in that R&D activity, as well as a number of contractors that we were able to qualify as well.
Yeah, one of, I'll go into a specific example. In one of the jobs that we claimed, it was a assembly line for seats that are manufactured for a tier 1 automotive manufacturer. And we had to build a robot that would take that seat from the build pallet to the shipping pallet. And, obviously we provide the scope and all that to the customer. By the time, it comes to designing it and building it, well, when it comes to integrating it into the line, we run into issues because there are inconsistencies with the build pallet. And that robot, obviously has a fixed point and needs a fixed pallet, so that way it can go to that same point every time. And that variation, causes many issues, reprogramming a new solution, a different, gripper on there. So it's all of that, qualifies as, is research and development, figuring out what process works, what doesn't, unknowns, things like that. And I'd like to brag on Leyton a little bit because, we're a small business. We're like 30 people. We just recently in 2018 started actually tracking our time with an app. So, to have details of people's times when they're either working on assembly or they're programming or doing mechanical design, we didn't have any of that. We just said, so-and-so is working on this job. And that was actually one of my big concerns going into it, is how are we going to parse these people's times out between, research and development and non-research development time. And Leyton was able to work with us and provide, methods that were able to capture it in a much better way, given the information that we had. So Leyton was very flexible with that, and process work.
Well, thank you for bragging on us. We appreciate it. So the next slide covers some of your applications, which Bronson, I don't know if you'd like to talk through those.
Yeah, so automation and controls, really just centers around PLCs, PC-based controls, SCADA, servo motors, pneumatics. Motion controls is probably, our, at least we build the people, that's our forte. I mean, that's our really bread and butter. Motion controls is a real unique area that not a lot of people have the ability to do. It's really high level programming. The smallest variance can really cause a real change in code and have to really update a lot of things. That's really the bucket that a lot of our research and development fell under, because that can, that requires a lot of knowledge and experimentation. Robotics handling really is the integration, the installing support. Our objective is to, we don't necessarily provide full assembly lines, but rather a piece of the puzzle. And we build and program those robots and then ship it to our customers. And, we like it to be plug and play. Normally it's a 2-week plug and play for the integration part, but that's what we aim to do. Custom machinery, we offer, we are a solutions company. We will listen to any problems anybody has and offer some solution that comes with automation. We've, developed our own custom machinery from the ground up. It's not typically the main thing that we like to do, but we have done it on a big scale, $500,000 pieces of equipment. And we install those, support them, and do everything front to back.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So I don't know if eventually, is there anything else that you want to share before we just give a brief description of what Leyton does, and then we're going to open it up to questions.
So I think we captured the bulk of it. I'd be interested in any questions that the participants have. But yeah, to the point that Bronson made, it's not necessary that you have, detailed documentation on everything and you have a time tracking file and all of that. Obviously, that's very helpful. That's the golden standard. But we do work with our clients. We see what they have available, and we do find methods to best capture the credit with what they have on hand.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Just a brief history, or not history, but a brief description of Leyton. We are a global firm. We've got about 32 offices in a bunch in Europe. We have 2 here in the United States and a few in Canada. And one of the common threads throughout all of our offices is the research and development tax credit. So we are true experts and specialists. We have a great team of tax attorneys who keep up with the code, which tends to change pretty frequently, and it's sort of hard to understand. So we make sure we completely get it. And that is our, our core competency. So if you are interested or you have any questions about the R&D tax credit, we are your people to go to. So I will open it up to questions, and I'm going to leave it on this page in case you guys do want to schedule a 30-minute call with one of our experts. You can rely on Olivia to arrange that for you. And we've also put a link in the chat if you guys would like to just schedule a meeting right now. But we do have a couple questions. So panelists, get your mics ready, as these will be geared towards you guys. So we have a question about documentation. Bronson had mentioned time tracking and that you guys were using a tool. What else did you guys need in addition to your time tracking information?
So really, yeah, like that, like you said, there were really 2 big things: time tracking and proposal documents. So every job that we do, we will provide our customers with a proposal document, a scope of work, and those were really what we use. In the future, we plan to use the success stories, but as a supplement for this first time around, what documentation we have available, we used our proposals, which, obviously the scope of work provides a great detail of what we're doing, what we plan to do, what the assumptions are, things like that. We have estimate sheets that I don't think I provided you guys, but, we took a dive into on our side to get some information. What did we quote, things like that. We ran some job P&Ls on our side to, take a dive in parts and really figure out what our costs were regarding time for each. And I compiled a lot of information and provided a summary, at least as far as labor cost, some parts cost, subcontractors cost. Well, I had to get you guys 1099s, W-2s, quarterly payroll tax returns. So really, those obvious things like that, but really timesheets and our proposal documents were the 2 big ones that I got to you guys.
Yes, so from the technical side, the proposal documents are definitely useful in terms of, if they're readily available and we can just review them and see if the type of activities would qualify per the definition of the R&D as the IRS defines it, and kind of reduce the need to go back to the client and inquire about that project specifically. So you can sort of sort through those documents without requiring more time from the client side.
Well, great. It sounds like stuff that people probably have around anyways to run your business. So why not share it and get some money back? All right. I think we have one more question about filing deadlines. So I think I can probably answer this one for you guys. Is there a deadline to file my R&D tax credit, or can I file at any time? There are tax deadlines throughout the year, depending on how your business is and how you file. So my recommendation would be to begin having the conversation. As you can tell, there is a process to collect some of the documentation, especially if you've not claimed this credit before. So I would say have a conversation, figure out the best way to work with us, and then we can determine when you should be filing tax credit based upon the structure of your individual business. And then we also offer, if you are currently claiming the R&D tax credit, we can do what's called an optimization study, where we would just we would do a study and see what we can add on top of it. One thing that we always find in the engineering sector is that there is a lot of activities that go missed that might not be very obvious to someone who doesn't specialize in the credit. So you end up missing out on some activities, which could be like quality control checks. There might be process improvements that are included within that process that are overlooked. So even if you're already doing it, it doesn't hurt to have a new set of eyes take a look at it. So I think that actually concludes the questions that we have. Is there anything, are there any last questions, or is there anything else that Bronson and Evangelia that you'd like to share with the group?
I'll say one thing we didn't mention, the question was about how much time it took. Obviously the first thing we did this process is you guys we reached out to you guys, and you guys looked at, what it is we offer to customers, what our, I guess, qualifications are to claim this credit, and if it's feasible. And, once we took just a slight look at, what we offer our customers and how many jobs we have, it was quickly determined the cost versus benefit of this, of spending the time to claim it, it's worth it. So, that was obviously the first step in the process to make sure it's worth it, the benefits there, and, it's the right thing to do.
Yes, so based on the conversation that we have with a client initially, after they have a better idea of what would qualify, what wouldn't, we always provide a high level estimate, and that sort of informs the client, what the benefit will be versus the time commitment.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your experience and taking time out of your day to share today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to speaking with you, those who joined, in a more private chat to see how this credit might benefit your business. And that everything is complimentary. Our fee is a percentage based off the benefit we can identify. So we would love to have a chat, see if it's a viable solution for you guys. And of course, that is all complimentary. So thank you so much, Bronson. Thank you so much, Evangelia, and to the marketing team for putting this all together. And go enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Maggie. It was a pleasure being the guest.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.